We're going to do an overview of an M1 Carbine that I have, and I picked this up many years ago out of an estate. And this particular rifle was made by M1 General Motors. I tried to put some chalk on it, but I couldn't get it to focus or be seen. But it says M1 General Motors Division 548, I believe. So that meant that they were still producing brand new rifles for a few years after the war ended. Now, this particular version, I am not an expert on carbines, but I believe they started, I don't know when they started putting the more complicated rear sight on them. So that's on there. And I'll open the slide and we'll take a look at the markings. But it has the standard sight. The older one was a simple flip-up sight. And this one still is in the configuration to where there is no bayonet lug. Now, I don't know when they started changing this forward barrel band and adding the bayonet lug, but obviously it wasn't done during the war. And I have seen guns that were refurbished or re-arsenaled that other people have had to have barrel dates 43, 44, and they must have been when they were re-arsenaled, they added the bayonet lug, which encompasses taking this front sight off the barrel. You can't get this thing off the barrel to replace it unless you take off the front sight. Also, these guns, the parkerizing, the shade of the parkerizing isn't as deep as it is on this gun. This is the World War II type parkerizing that was on there. And if we go down and look at the stock, kind of got beat up. This thing was probably new. Now, for some reason, you see the one little inspection stamp there. And I bought a surplus sling and oiler setup. The M1 Carbine was not released for sale as surplus for many years. It wasn't until the late 50s, early 60s. And this also, out of all the small arms made during World War II, be it M1 Garands, 1911s, or any handgun or anything, they made more of these carbines than anything else. So the government had a huge surplus of these firearms. But strangely, they would not part with them until later on. They weren't sold off to where the public can get them for years later. And also, this has the older style safety, the cross-bolt safety and that on there, where after they were modified to the M2 or something, they have the little flag safety, which you can. Okay, with the action open, we can look at the markings on the receiver. Serial number is back here. That's your bolt hold open. And I believe this one has the machined flat on the bolt, which is the early style also. They became round. The bolts were round after they were changed out or modified. And I'm not quite sure how long they produced the guns. But we had a huge surplus of these. And at one point in time, you could get these if you belonged to a club back in the 80s and stuff. And it was affiliated with target shooting. You could get an M1 Garand and a carbine from the, was at the time it was called the DCM, not the CMP. And basically that's where I got mine. This one I believe the guy bought in a magazine ad prior to 1968 when they first started selling them as surplus guns. So a lot of these nicer example firearms came out of the CMP years ago, and guys in the club would do it and get them, and they were pretty reasonable. I think they're about $200 when you bought them, and they might have been a little bit more beat up than this. These weren't really nice. And they did an article, an American Rifleman, showing how they stored these things in these cylinders filled with nitrogen and that, and the government didn't know what to do with them. So in the end, they gave a whole bunch of them to the Mexican National Police as a form of aid, or sold them to them or something. So that's what kind of liquidated a lot of these. And you'd find these around on the surplus market, or people had them. They were sold in sporting goods stores, and that. And in the 80s, a bunch of them came out of Korea, and some of them were in real terrible shape. And it was kind of strange what they did with them. Local gun shop had a bunch of them. And what they did with the wood, he goes, it must have been they were beat up. And he believes they steamed them. They took all the stocks off, steamed them, got all the dents and stuff out, and covered them with it looked like a reddish type of stain on there. But you got an original M1 Carbine. It looked a little weird. It was a little on the beat up side, and you had to be careful. Some of them were in real bad shape, worn out. Some weren't. I think I had one or two of them back then. They were decent shooters. Another cartouche there. But finding them in this nice of a grade like this, like I said, this has all the older trigger guards, no bayonet lug, kind of a transitional gun. These are always worth some money. Now, I can't even tell you what these things are worth. And of course, we know Royal Tiger imported a whole bunch of them, and some of them were the very early ones with the flip-up sights. They were quite expensive. I never seen fit. I'm happy with the one I have. Didn't see fit to buy one, but a lot of people, they don't complain. And 30 carbine, M1 30 carbine ammo was the first U.S. military ammo to be made with non-corrosive primers. That is why these guns survived so well. They didn't have corrosive primers in the ammo. 30 carbine ammo was never made with corrosive primers in the United States. And that's kind of why these guns held up pretty well over the years in condition of the bore-wise. Alright, well there's a glance at it, fellas. Classic firearm. A lot of fun to shoot. Going to do some reloading videos on this. I haven't reloaded for this gun in many, many years. But we're going to try to do a reloading video and get out and shoot it a little more. Okay, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.